After all, why not? Why shouldn't I keep it?
I think you should leave the ring behind. Well, is that so hard?
Well, no.
Patch 3.23 Affliction League had some interesting new abilities that were tied to one of the Wildwood Ascendancies, the Warlock of the Mists. As a Warlock, you could spec into a notable that allowed you to choose which one of these skills you wanted to have access to, and another notable behind that choice that provided a bit more benefit to actually using those skills. When Affliction League ended, the Wildwood Ascendancies went away, and GGG have been slowly re-adding mechanics from those Ascendancies into the core game ever since that time. We had the Apostate and Varuso's Ambition added in patch 3.24, both providing whole or partial access to some of those Wildwood Ascendancy powers. And now in the current 3.25 patch, we've got the new Warden Ascendancy replacing the Raider, and we have the topic of today's video. 3 new unique rings which grant access to one of the 3 previously Warlock exclusive abilities. The Hateful Accuser, the Queller of Minds, and the Selfish Shepherd. These 3 unique rings are exclusive drops from the Ritual mechanic. Before we get into the details of each ring, I first should mention the Basetype, because this is a new Ritual exclusive Basetype, the Nameless ring, which provides 50% increased elemental ailment duration on you, and 50% reduced effect of curses on you. This one is typically going to be a bit of a double-edged sword unless you're doing some sort of self-chill build or similar. Do keep in mind that reflected ailments, such as a Chieftain reflecting ignites from Hinekora explosions using the Fulcrum, the duration of these reflected ignites will not be increased with self-ailment duration modifier on these rings, because reflected ailment durations are only affected by offensive stats, such as increased ailment duration you inflict on enemies. However, the reduced effect of curses on you modifier is very useful, especially when combined with a flask modifier or another source of the same stat elsewhere to reduce curse effects on you by 100%. Alright, let's first look at the Queller of Minds. This ring has some cast speed, mana and chaos resistance, but the reason that you'd be using any of these rings is for the unique ability that they provide, and this one is the weirdest of the 3. It may even be the weirdest ability GGG has ever added to the game, and to be honest, I really didn't expect this skill to ever come back once Affliction had ended, but here we are. Pacify is a hex curse which curses all targets in an area. For 60% of its duration, this curse does absolutely nothing. Then, for the remaining 40% of that duration, Pacify will prevent targets from dealing any damage. This ability only prevents the entity from dealing damage directly. It won't have any effects on things that are present in areas but aren't necessarily dealing damage from the entity directly. For example, the storm clouds which chase you around in the Cirrus boss fight. These storms deal damage which isn't considered to be dealt from Cirrus himself, so pacifying Cirrus will not prevent them from dealing damage to you. Additionally, any effects which will outright kill the character without dealing any damage, such as the drowning orbs in the Eater of Worlds fight, will still kill the character regardless of Pacify. Now, the Pacify curse duration can be altered with modifiers to curse duration, which will have an impact on both the period of time where the curse does nothing, and the period of time where the target cannot deal damage. For example, extending the curse duration will make it so that the target will deal no damage for longer, but you'll also need to wait longer until you actually get to that effect where the target deals no damage. The expiry rate of the curse, however, cannot be changed, which means you cannot, for example, apply temporal chains or a similar effect during the no damage portion of the curse to artificially extend its duration. Now, Pacify wasn't used much at all during Affliction League, and this ring is currently not being used at all in 3.25. As I said before, this is just a very strange ability that I was surprised to see make a return. It's one of those things that will sit dormant for a long time, maybe forever, but there could be a case in the future where someone realises that this curse lines up perfectly to somehow avoid damage on a giant boss ability, but overall, a bit of a strange one. Next we have the Hateful Accuser, and we go from the one that will be used the least to the one that will absolutely be used the most. The Hateful Accuser has some cast speed, life and chaos resistance, and it grants access to the Penance Mark skill. This was the favourite ability of many Warlock users during Affliction League, and with good reason. Penance Mark is a Mark curse skill which targets a single enemy. It has the same behaviour as any other Mark skill, meaning it lasts indefinitely, it scales with Mark effects, and only one Mark can be active at a time. Penance Mark will make it so that hits against that target spawn phantasms which are allies of that target, essentially providing new targets for you to utilise. By default, 3 phantasms are spawned no more than once per second. These phantasms are considered to be normal rarity enemies in regards to the scaling of stats such as life, and they cast a ranged projectile spell. The phantasms do not drop loot when they're killed, and they also will not leave any corpse, but they will grant both flask charges and vow souls. Now, the reason why Penance Mark was favoured in Affliction League, and the reason why the Hateful Accuser is already being used a lot in 3.25, is because the phantasms that are summoned can be used for on-hit and on-kill effects, and since they fire projectile spells as well, they can also be used to proc when-hit effects and other similar stats such as on-block mechanics. One of the main use cases for this right now is on a chieftain to create fodder mobs which provide a chance to proc Hinakora's Death's Fury explosions when you kill them, dealing a lot of damage with that explosion and any subsequent ignite, which is particularly useful with Righteous Fire builds that struggle in the single target damage department. But that's not the only use that's seeing a lot of attention, because in 3.25 the addition of new retaliation skills provide another use case for the Hateful Accuser. These skills require specific conditions to be met, such as blocking, before they can be used. The phantasms spawned by Penance Mark can help to make those abilities a lot more reliable so that you can use them more often in a bossing scenario. As mentioned before, Penance Mark scales with Mark effect, and each breakpoint of 33.3% Mark effect provides an additional summoned phantasm on hit. Lastly, we have the Selfish Shepherd. This ring has some cast speed, maximum energy shield, and chaos resistance, and it grants access to the Affliction ability, which is not a curse or a mark. This is instead a skill which can only target your minions to create a permanent effect on them. This effect makes them take physical damage over time at an accelerating rate, starting at 8% of their maximum life per second, with this value increasing by 100% per second. Your character then regenerates life per second equal to 20% of this damage that's being dealt to your minions, and this accounts for all of your minions that have the same effect on them, so it can provide quite a substantial amount of healing for your character. When minions reach 20% of their maximum life, they explode, dealing 50% of their maximum life as physical damage to surrounding enemies. So this is actually quite a powerful effect, and it's significantly higher in terms of base damage than minion instability, which makes minions explode for 33% of their maximum life as fire damage, once they're reduced to low life, which is 50% of their life. So essentially, you need to get your minions to a much lower threshold of life for a bigger payout. But do keep in mind that this is physical damage. It will be affected by any relevant conversion modifiers that minion has. For example, Absolution minions, which convert 50% of their physical damage to lightning damage, or inherent conversion modifiers which are not necessarily present as a skill gem fact, such as Summon Raging Spirits, which have a natural 100% physical to fire conversion. The Affliction ability certainly has potential with SRS of Enormity, or even the Guardian's Sentinel of Radiance, for a massive damage explosion. But the skill provides a bit more of a hands-on active playstyle rather than an automated one, which some may wish to avoid. Overall, I expect to see the Hateful Accuser and the Selfish Shepherd used a bit, especially the Hateful Accuser for Penance Mark, as its undeniable synergy with Hinakora Death's Fury will make it useful as long as that combination of mechanics is always an option. As for the Queller of Minds and the Pacify ability, well, it remains to be seen if that type of mechanic can ever be useful, but perhaps one day it will be. Thanks for watching this video, and thank you for your ongoing support. As always, stay tuned and stay safe.